Alright, you guys, so let's go ahead and get started on example 2 here. Now, on example 2, we are asked to simplify the expressions that are being divided. So, first thing we have to do here is want to go ahead and start by factoring both numerator and denominator to determine what we could probably eliminate. So, in this case, on the first expression, we have 5n4 plus 40n cubed. Now, the common factor between those two would be a 5n cubed, so I'm going to go ahead and factor that out. 5n cubed, and we're left with n plus an 8. All of this is over our following factors. We have n squared minus 19n plus 48. Now, in this case, we're basically looking for two factors that multiply to 48, but also add up to negative 19. Now, since this is a positive number, we're basically looking for either two positive or two negative factors, and based on our middle term, it's going to be the negative factors. So in this case, those two factors would be n minus 16 times n minus 3 as well. So then this would be negative 3 times negative 16 would give us 48. And if we add them, that would give us the negative 19. So now moving on to the next one, divided by, we have 3n squared plus 15n minus 72. They have actually a common factor of 3, so I'm going to go ahead and take that out just to make my life easier when it comes to factoring. Minus 24. And all of this, sorry about that, all of this is equal to, in this case on the bottom, we have n squared minus 16n, and the common factor there would be just an n. So we're left with n minus 16. Now, before we move on, we do have to focus on a few restrictions here. Now, whenever you are dividing fractions, we do have to do two types of restrictions. One, before we multiply by the reciprocal. So in this case, we basically have to make each of the expressions in the denominator equal to 0. So we have n minus 16 equals 0, n minus 3 equal to 0, n equal to 0, and I could repeat n minus 16 equal to 0, but it's basically the same thing here. So if we do that, we have n equal to 16, n equal to 3, and n equal to 0. So I'll go ahead and just highlight those so we know that these are my restrictions so far. So from here, I'll just go ahead and go to the bottom. Now, our next step would be to multiply by the reciprocal. Now, as I do that, I will rewrite this expression as two binomial factors because I still need to simplify this one here. So then I'm going to do two steps in one. We have 5n cubed times n plus 8 all over n minus 16 times n minus 3. And all of that is being multiplied by n times n minus 16 over 3. And the factors in this case of n squared plus 5n minus 24 would be n plus an 8 times n minus a 3. So now we have our expression multiplied by its reciprocal. We did start off with division, but in order to simplify it, we have to multiply by its reciprocal. So based on moving on from here, we still have to focus on another restriction. So we had said that once we divide, we need to do some restrictions, and after we're multiplying by the reciprocal, we need to do it again. So in this case, I do want to note that the negative 6, we know that in this case, n cannot equal 16 or n cannot equal 3. So if you base it off from here, the only one we have pending would be n plus 8. So n plus 8 equal to 0. In this case, n cannot equal to 8, or negative 8 in this case. So from here, we do want to go ahead and move on to canceling any common factors. And if you guys take a look at this here, we do have a few. We have n minus 16, so let's go ahead and cancel those out. And we also have n plus 8. And I just noticed that this is supposed to be an n. There you go. So then we're going to go ahead and express it in simplest form. We have 5n cubed times n all over n minus 3 times n minus 3. Or we could rewrite this as 5n cubed all over n minus 3 squared. And we also have to include our restrictions. So in this case, our restrictions are for when n cannot equal a negative 8, a 0, a 3, or a 16. And this here would be our final answer. And here